The Starr and D'Amico Show is brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. If you're looking for quality gear without overpaying, shop cheapesttshirts.ca. Huge selection for men, women, and kids. Tees, hoodies, headwear, bags, and more. Proud Montreal business. Order today, ship today, delivery tomorrow. That's cheapesttshirts.ca. Local, fast, and affordable. Brought to you by instacustoms.com. Do you need custom gear from a local Montreal business? Instacustoms.com has you covered. Custom shirts, hoodies, hats, and more made your way. Fast turnaround, great quality, and proudly Montreal-based. Check out instacustoms.com. Brought to you by Cabletel. For trusted alarm systems in Quebec and Eastern Ontario, choose Cabletel. Over 20 years of expert installation and top-tier protection for homes and businesses. Check out Cabletel.com. Email them info@Cabletel.com. It's Cabletel. Peace of mind you can count on. Brought to you by Morella's Steakhouse. Looking for an unforgettable night out? Morella's Steakhouse on Highway 132. It's just 15 minutes from Montreal, serving up premium cuts and bold flavors, and no tax on your bill. Book your table tonight at morellassteakhouse.ca. Taste excellence tonight. Brought to you by Little Bear. Give your pet the best with Little Bear Pet Supply. It's a proudly family-owned business here in Montreal for over 30 years. Chuck, Evie, and their all-star staff have you taken care of with all the top brands at the best prices, and they really care for your pets. Shop online at littlebearonline.com or visit them on St. Catherine across from Westmount Square. It's Little Bear Pet Supply. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Head over to McLean's Pub, 1210 Peel Street in the heart of downtown Montreal. Great food, cold drinks, and big games on all the screens. McLean's Pub, good times and great company. There's Marco D'Amico. I am Shaun Starr. It's a pleasure to be with you. Marco, as Team Canada, the men's Olympic hockey tournament remains perfect. Different opposition than how they played against Czechia. Let's start with Canada's, obviously, their big win. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of that, but what about how Switzerland kind of tangled them? That was a very pro-Swiss crowd to the point where Mike Johnson between the benches had to dodge beer cups. Didn't dodge them well enough because he got tagged with one. But walk me through what you saw from Switzerland before Canada ultimately pulled away to get to 2-0 at the tournament.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're in Milan, so Switzerland is an hour and a half north. It's not that far. And obviously, when there's the Olympics, you're going to drive down for that, like you would if you're in Canada driving down to the U.S. Olympics in Utah in 2030. So I like what I saw because there were physical. They didn't let themselves get pushed around. In fact, other than Connor McDavid leveling some guy at the very beginning of the game,
Yeah.
I felt like they were, it was very even in terms of the impact that they were having. And I just love the pace. The pace was excellent. Like, yes, the game ends 5-1, but that was a far closer game than I think we give it credit for. I think Logan Thompson made some really good saves. So to me, considering, the lack of talent depth that Switzerland has, I think they played a very honest game. And again, like if this is what the 5th or 6th or 7th seed in hockey can do against Canada, like I just can't wait for the games to get more and more important as they go along.
You brought up Logan Thompson's name. Dom Lucian in The Athletic had a pretty good piece in making a case for Logan Thompson over Jordan Binnington. Binnington, of course, helps backstop Canada. Logan gets the game, the second game in as many nights. Game 3 will go Sunday morning against Alexandre Texier and the French side. But you mentioned how well, I mean, early on, Logan Thompson made a couple of nice stops. We saw a scorpion save from Schmidt on the other end, denying Sidney Crosby.
What a save.
What a save indeed, no doubt. But it's still, to me, it's still Jordan Binnington's net. I ask you to get into John Cooper's headspace here, is it?
Oh, yeah.
Do you still think he leans Binnington?
Yeah, I mean, look, you had Cooper basically say that he had made the decision to start Binnington for the last game yesterday, 358 days ago.
Yeah.
Jordan Binnington is the starter for the for Team Canada. The moment the elimination rounds happen, he could, France could upset Canada, and I'm going to knock on wood here.
Yeah.
And they would probably still go back to Binnington in the elimination game. So good for Thompson to get a win, to get a start in this one. But the tournament is too short. They're going to try to ice some of their goalies, try to get everybody a game probably. But I think they ultimately just go back to Binnington, especially considering he got a shutout in his first game. I'm not generally worried about that. I think where Canada is kind of trying to figure it out is the balance on their lines, because man, we saw some flip flopping of lines throughout the entirety of the game, and they finally landed on one of the lines that I've wanted to see since the moment I saw this lineup announced, and that was putting Nathan McKinnon with Connor McDavid.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I don't know, was that the TSN turning point after Canada kills a penalty and John Cooper right off the PK goes Celebrini, McDavid, McKinnon, boom, it's in the back of the net. I mean, good luck to anybody trying to defend that. I mean, the skill on display from Canada was off the charts. And you had told Connor McKenna and I on your Wednesday morning hit with us that John Cooper doesn't mind putting lines in the blender, mixing and matching. He does
At
it with
all.
the Lightning. And to me, I was going to lead you in with this, but I'm glad you brought it up. If we're handing out 3 stars, I think John Cooper might be one of my stars for those in-game adjustments and how it helped maybe turn the momentum. Not that it was ever in Switzerland's way, but it really propelled Canada forward.
Absolutely. I think it absolutely did. And I think I'll give you one, I'll go one step beyond. I think one of my 3 stars is definitely Macklin Celebrini. And I
Oh,
think he's just been, it's like, and people are gonna, but it's like watching Sidney Crosby in the 2010 Olympics.
oh, they call
That's
him
what
Mini
that's what
Crosby, yeah? Yeah.
that's what I see in his game, like the speed in his game, the tenacity, the never say die attitude. Like he is all over the place, finding soft ice. His goal again, gorgeous. And again, like the McKinnon goal on the on 5-on-5 at the end of that penalty kill was all Celebrini hustling out of the box to make that play and get that puck to Connor McDavid, who then obviously does the power move to the net. But the first overall line, as we call it, because they were all picked first overall, 2016, 2013, 2016, and 2024. And to me, like I just feel like that's the dynamite line for me. I this is gonna come off weird on a 5-1 win, but I haven't really liked McKinnon at center in this tournament. In the I'm sorry, I'm trying to do math here. In the 87 minutes that I saw him at center,
Yeah.
but I think he's better suited for the wing in this kind of a in this kind of a situation because he's not being asked to set up his teammates. He's going to be there on the wing, take advantage of his speed, of his physicality. He could really kind of lean into the power forward element. And then you have McDavid setting up 2 of the best goal scorers right now in the world in Celebrini and McKinnon. I think it's a recipe for success. And the only thing I think about when I think of that line moving forward is poor France.
Oh, yeah, heads up. McKinnon finishes with 3 points. Connor McDavid, I mean, it's hard to be continually impressed by 97, but
Mhm.
another 3-point performance. The math is easy. He's got 6 points after 2 games. Chris Cuthbert made the joke that he may lead the tournament in scoring and body checks. But he's such a special player to watch, and we've seen him as we just talked about on different lines. I mean, we knew McKinnon and the rest of the team, Marco. They were hardwired. They were all business. And you see Nathan McKinnon, you see Connor McDavid, just the ability to turn a game, turn a shift over. And he didn't even play more than 14 and a half minutes in the 5-1 win today.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to give him credit. Whenever he's on the ice, he's making something happen. There's always something dangerous. You look at the smaller neutral zone, he's really taking advantage of that. And that's where we talked about the players with elite transition ability are going to stand out more and more. And when McKinnon or McDavid have the puck on their stick and they are going full speed, it is virtually impossible from the middle of the neutral zone to the high circles to be able to stop them because they're coming at you at full speed. You have no choice but to back up, and you don't have the luxury of having that extra 3 or 4 feet that you would normally have in regular NHL ice. It comes at you quick. So, guys are getting blown by, you're getting missed calls. Guys are going to the sides and cutting back into the middle because they're able to go around players easier. It's insane how quick the pace is. And those guys are going to thrive in these kinds of situations. It's going to be, to me, again, like I said, I go back to the being able to just watch this and marvel, but it's going to be really when they start playing like the Swedens and in the Team USA's, that's really where you're going to start seeing, okay, how can this kind of deal with an elite defense though? And I will give them credit. I feel like Switzerland really played a strong team defense in this game, despite it being 5-1.
Agree wholeheartedly. And Canada scored some beauty goals. I mean, even Sidney Crosby's, Mitch Marner, the slap pass, perfectly
Mm.
placed
Well,
for the
Schmid made
deflection.
some Schmid's made some really good saves, and I
Did he
think
ever?
that
Yes.
Yossi made some really good defensive plays as well to kind of kill a couple of plays that
Yeah.
could have resulted in sure goals. So I tip my cap to Switzerland in this game. But again, you have a line rolling like that. You have a follow-up line that includes Sidney Crosby, Mitch Marner, and Mark Stone. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we saw a Mark Stone breakaway. Did you
Yeah.
see the skating stride on
Yes.
that man?
Yeah.
Like my nephew skates like that. Like the that was stupendous. I need to get that like turned into a meme by the end of this tournament.
He even had, I mean, the separation. At one point, I'm like, he's still carrying the puck. He's still carrying the puck, and off
Yeah,
he
he's
went.
just going.
And but don't you think that, I mean, how Canada kind of controlled the game, obviously 5-1 to get to 2-0. By the way, if you like what you're watching, like what you're listening to, please give us a like, spread the word of the Starr and D'Amico show across Habs Nation on YouTube.com. About how Canada started. The pace was rabid at the beginning, and I thought they looked to me that, okay, let's slow it down a little bit. And to me, that's the sign of a team in command, is it not? Of controlling the tempo. We'll play fast if we want to. We'll slow it
Mhm.
down if we need to. And to me, that kind of stood out in how Canada managed that performance on Friday.
Yeah, I'm just worried about like the penalties, the indiscipline. Like I just felt like they were playing with fire a little bit towards the end of the game. Thompson had to come out with a couple of really strong saves before
Yeah.
Canada kind of came back. The Celebrini penalty almost was costly as well, and then turned back out the other way.
Well,
So this
Sam
is
Bennett
something they're
got
gonna
away
have to
with one
watch.
too on Heischer. Yeah.
Sam Bennett getting away with one story of my life.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's it's one element in a quasi perfect game that I'm just kind of worried about because you don't want to play with fire when you start playing against those those higher end teams in elimination settings. That's my only major worry. Other than that, it was a flawless game overall by this team. But in my opinion, they still need to figure out a couple of line combinations, especially in their bottom six.
So let's get into that. We talked about John Cooper getting the star of the game for loading up with Celebrini, McDavid, and McKinnon. Nick Suzuki, who started on the wing next to Nathan McKinnon in the win over Czechia. Marco, your thoughts on how John Cooper managed the Canadiens captain, played 13 and a half minutes, but moved back to the middle of the ice, something I saw TSN insider and NHL analyst Martin Bureau mention after Canada's win. He thinks Nick Suzuki's, the best version of himself is down the middle, and John Cooper decided to give him a look on Friday in the win.
I agree, though. I always think that Nick Suzuki is a better center just because he covers the ice better. He's not the winger type, and it's never going to be his style. The instinct is always going to be to go into those, to cover the ice, to cover the pass, to be in a support role as opposed to being that kind of like pure offense attacker. And when you look at the way that you put him on a line with Hagel, Hagel does kind of Hagel's more of a defensive forward, going towards the net, trying to overpower. I just felt like that line was a little mismatched is with McKinnon. I just don't think like who was the distributor on that line, and I just felt like it was Nick Suzuki, and you're doing that from the wing. I don't know that that's necessarily playing to everybody's strength. So
Mm.
one of the other elements I thought was that Tom Wilson was just not working up on that top line. He just wasn't following. It was really just Celebrini and McDavid carrying that line. And so to put McKinnon, I think, made a ton of sense. After that, it was to figure out what they were going to do with that bottom six. I think, like you said, they played the 4 or 5 shifts with Suzuki at center between Hagel and Tom Wilson. At what point there was a rotation. Horvat ended up being the center on that line. Nick Suzuki skipped a shift, came back, was the center on that line. Second shift, Horvat was the center, but Suzuki was the winger. So I'm starting to kind of see what's happening here, and I just wonder if like there's a little bit more experimentation that goes into the next game against France, where Suzuki is the center, or shares that duty with a Horvat, and then you have Hagel, and then you really have like a defensive third line right there that could produce offense. And then you could, when Marchand, draws back into the lineup, then you have your Florida Panthers line as your fourth line, and you just roll with all 4 of those guys. Because I think that if Nick Suzuki isn't going to work out with McKinnon, and obviously McKinnon being the one playing with McDavid, I want to see Nick Suzuki playing with Bo Horvat. That combination, I think, would be money. You have Bo Horvat, who's just a straight shot two-way center that's a lefty. Nick Suzuki being the righty, so you have your faceoffs covered. You never really have to change your rotation. And at the same time, Nick Suzuki is more of that playmaker type of guy. And we know that Brendan Hagel loves to be able to play up and down the ice. that combination to me would make sense. And then you'd have four lines that you could really roll with the 13th forward coming in and out.
You get the sense after 2 games, Czechia, Switzerland on Friday, that this team is gaining momentum, or do you think they started the tournament with a ton of momentum? I mean, we're talking about Canada, 10 goals in 2 games. Power play looks dynamic. Obviously, there's so much talent there. Cale Makar with a multi-point game in the 5-1 win against Switzerland. But what's your read on how they've played? Are they building? Do you see a team that continues to build and get chemistry? Because for me, that's been a kind of surprising is how the like instant noodles, like bam, like 2 minutes in and they're rocking and rolling here.
I think one of the big things is like a lot of the players that were there at the Four Nations seem to be clicking. Think about it, right?
Yep.
A lot of the players that weren't there at the Four Nations are struggling. And it's not, well, I mean, struggling. I wouldn't say struggle. He has a goal, Nick Suzuki, but that was not his best game by any stretch of the imagination. He's capable of better, and he needs to up his tempo. He needs to rise to the speed of this game because the slow, methodic, cerebral kind of play that you normally see during the regular season, that's not going to fly in the Olympics. You're going to have to up it. You're going to have to start skating. And so I do think that he's capable of it, and I think it does help them a lot. But when you look at chemistry, it's really the players that weren't there last year that are the ones that are trying to find themselves in this process. So the only one being Celebrini, but Celebrini is playing with McDavid, and let's call a spade here. Celebrini prior to this tournament was one of the best players in the world. So I kind of expected this watching him play. When you have Nick Suzuki in a situation where you're playing off position on a third line, not used to being in that winger scenario. Like I get it. But he's capable of better. And I think we can all agree on that. From I would say chemistry wise, I was more worried about the defensive side than the offensive side, especially when you lose a guy like Josh Morrissey, who a lot of the guys in that room already knew quite well. Now you have Thomas Harley coming in, getting a little bit more minutes. Shea Theodore, no longer the 7th defenseman, comes in, gets a little bit more minutes. Thomas Harley, even Shea Theodore with Parayko, Thomas Harley with Drew Doughty. I love those combinations because those are two, like Theodore and Harley are two puck moving defensemen that can just free roam, have fun. Because you have two other guys right there that are able to just come in, cover your bases, play a hard game. And, I just felt like that to me, watching them play the defensive side play the way they did reassured me. Because if there was a weakness that I felt that Team Canada had vis-a-vis, for example, the United States or perhaps even Sweden, it was on defense. And it was being able to really coagulate that entire defensive court.
Great word. Cale Makar over 21 minutes. And again, picked up 2 assists as Canada rolls to a 5-1 win over Switzerland to get to 2-0. Up next, Vive la France. Sunday morning, Marco and I will be here for a recap of that game as Canada looks to run the prelims here. And before the tournament began, they had a 99% win probability against France. Might be 99.999 after the first 2 games. Stay tuned for that. Let's see how big, I'll go out on a ledge. How big the margin of victory might be against Alexander Texier and the French side on Sunday morning.
Listen, the last time we thought the team was going to get steamrolled out of this world was Sweden versus Italy, and they made a game out of it.
Finland taught Sweden a lesson on Friday morning.
That's what I'm saying. Stuff happens. So, all I'm saying is Canada's very likely going to win by a large margin against France, but I just wouldn't. I wouldn't toot my horn just yet.
And very quickly, another strong. Juraj Slafkovsky, a primary assist on Slovakia's first goal. The Slovaks get to 2-0, and man, oh man, he's very much looking the part of a guy who understands his role for his country's team at this tournament, coming off a bronze medal 4 years ago.
Yeah, well, and this is kind of the comparison that I have looking at the way that Slafkovsky played earlier this morning versus the way that Nick Suzuki just played. Slafkovsky's playing with pace, man. He's going up the ice with speed. His feet are always moving. He's making the right reads. He's going to the net. He's making space. He's playing intelligently. To me, he's Slovakia's best player in terms of overall impact, defensively, neutral zone, offensively. Again, just playing at such a clip right now, such an intelligent clip. that he could potentially wind up being one of the most dangerous forwards in this tournament overall when it comes to the impact that they have for their team. So, Slovakia is going to be a team to watch when you start getting into the elimination setting, because they have upset ability written all over them. And Juraj Slafkovsky would be the maestro in that upset if it were to happen.
There's Marco D'Amico, senior editor at rg.org, and one half of Starr and D'Amico. Look, our names are on the show. It's kind of obvious. All right, brother, good stuff. We'll see you Sunday as Canada prepares for France. We'll be here to react to that. Enjoy the rest of the Olympics as we get into the second week and closer to the medal rounds. Thanks, bud.
Always a pleasure, guys. Enjoy.